Let me ask you something. Have you ever listened to a native English speaker and thought, I know these words, so why can't I catch them? You understand English when it's slow, but the moment native speakers talk naturally, the words seem to disappear. You lose the sentence, your confidence drops, and you immediately look for subtitles. But listen to me carefully. The problem is not your English. Your brain simply hasn't been trained to recognize fast, connected speech. Today, that changes. In this audiobook, you will train your mind to follow fast native English, catch words naturally, and understand conversations without depending on subtitles. Stay with me until the end, because once your brain learns how native speakers really speak, you'll stop hearing noise and start hearing English. Chapter 1. Stop listening for every word and start following the message. Let me ask you something. Have you ever finished listening to a native English speaker and said, I know these words, so why couldn't I understand the sentence? That question has frustrated millions of English learners. You study vocabulary every day. You learn grammar. You read English books without much difficulty. But when a native speaker begins talking at normal speed, everything suddenly feels different. The words seem to disappear. The sentence moves too quickly. And before your brain understands the beginning, the conversation has already reached the end. Then you blame yourself. You tell yourself that your listening is poor. You think your English is not good enough. You believe native speakers simply talk too fast. But let me tell you something that can completely change the way you learn English. Native speakers are not speaking a different language. Your brain is simply listening in the wrong way. Most English learners have been trained to listen for individual words. Every time they hear English, they try to catch every sound, remember every vocabulary word, and translate every sentence into their own language. While their brain is busy doing all of that, the speaker continues talking, and the learner falls further behind with every second. Now imagine trying to watch a beautiful movie by looking at only one frame at a time. You would never understand the story because your attention would remain trapped inside tiny pieces instead of seeing the complete picture. That is exactly what happens when you listen to English one word at a time. Fluent listeners do something completely different. They listen for the message. They listen for the story. They listen for the emotion. Instead of asking, did I hear every word? They ask, what is this person trying to tell me? That single habit changes everything. Imagine someone says, yesterday I finally met my cousin after 5 years, and we spent the whole afternoon talking about our childhood. A beginner immediately becomes worried. What does finally mean? Did they say whole or all? What exactly was the last word? While the beginner is thinking about those questions, the conversation has already moved forward. A confident listener hears something much simpler. Met my cousin after 5 years. Spent the afternoon together, talking about childhood. The entire message becomes clear even without understanding every single word. That is how real listening works. Your goal is not to collect words. Your goal is to understand ideas. There is another mistake that keeps learners stuck for years. They believe they must understand 100% before they can say they understood English. That belief creates unnecessary pressure. The truth is much simpler. Even native speakers do not hear every word perfectly during every conversation. There may be background noise. Someone may speak unclearly. A person may cough or laugh while talking. Yet the conversation continues because people naturally focus on the overall meaning instead of one missing word. You can train your brain to do exactly the same. Suppose someone tells you, I couldn't come yesterday because I got stuck at work. Perhaps you have never heard the expression, got stuck. Does that mean you understood nothing? Of course not. You still understand that the person could not come because of work. The message is complete. The conversation can continue. That is real communication. Another habit that slows your listening is translating every sentence into your own language. Translation feels helpful because it gives your brain a sense of security. Unfortunately, it also makes listening much slower. While you are translating the first sentence, the speaker is already explaining the second one. Eventually, your brain becomes overloaded, not because English is too difficult, but because it is trying to complete two different jobs at the same time. Instead of translating, begin creating pictures. If someone says, "A little boy is flying a kite beside a beautiful lake on a windy afternoon," do not search for the translation. See the little boy. See the blue lake. See the colorful kite moving through the sky. Your brain understands pictures much faster than translated sentences. That is exactly how children learn languages naturally. They connect sounds with experiences instead of connecting sounds with another language. You can develop the same habit. The next time you watch an English video, stop asking yourself which words you missed. Ask yourself one simple question. What is the speaker trying to tell me? That question immediately changes your attention. Instead of chasing vocabulary, your brain begins following meaning. Instead of becoming frustrated by one unknown word, you continue listening because you already understand the direction of the conversation. This is the habit that separates confident listeners from nervous learners. Confident listeners trust the message. They allow the conversation to continue. They know that understanding 80 or 90% is often enough to communicate successfully. As they keep listening, many of the missing words become clear from the context without any extra effort. Your listening will become stronger the moment you stop treating every unknown word like an emergency. Remember this throughout your English journey. Fast English is not understood by people who hear every single word. Fast English is understood by people who know how to follow the message from beginning to end. That is the skill you are beginning to build today. The more you focus on ideas instead of individual words, the calmer your mind becomes, the faster your understanding grows, and the more naturally you begin to understand native English without depending on subtitles or translation. Chapter 2. Stop translating sounds into words and start recognizing English patterns. Let me tell you something that most English learners never realize. You are not slow because native speakers talk fast. You are slow because your brain is trying to solve a puzzle that fluent listeners solved years ago. Every time a native speaker speaks, your brain begins a long process. First, it hears the sound. Then it tries to separate every word. After that, it translates the words into your own language. Then it checks the grammar. Finally, it tries to understand the meaning. By the time your brain finishes all of those steps, the speaker has already said 2 or 3 more sentences. That is why you constantly feel behind. The problem is not speed. The problem is the route your brain is taking. Imagine driving from one city to another. One road is straight, smooth, and fast. The other road is full of traffic, sharp turns, and unnecessary stops. Both roads lead to the same destination, but one takes much longer. Translation is that slow road. Every time you hear English and immediately translate it into your native language, your brain is taking the longest possible route. Fluent listeners take a completely different path. They hear the sound. Their brain immediately recognizes the meaning. There is no translation in the middle. That is exactly what you must train. Think about the word apple. When you hear that word in English, do you still translate it into your native language? Probably not. The moment you hear apple, you immediately see the fruit in your mind. That is direct understanding. Now imagine hearing the sentence, "I bought fresh apples this morning." A beginner may still translate every word one by one. A fluent listener immediately imagines someone buying apples at a market. The sentence becomes a picture instead of a translation. This is how fast listening begins. Your brain must learn to recognize ideas instead of converting every sentence into another language. Many learners believe they need a bigger vocabulary to understand native speakers. Sometimes that is true, but very often they already know the vocabulary. Their brain is simply translating too slowly. Imagine someone says, "I'll see you after work." You know every single word. Yet if your brain insists on translating each one before understanding the sentence, you lose precious time. Now compare that with a brain that immediately recognizes the entire phrase as one complete idea. "I'll see you after work." The meaning arrives instantly. That is exactly what happens when you stop translating and start recognizing. Recognition is always faster than translation. Think about recognizing your best friend's face. You do not study every part of their face before knowing who they are. You recognize the whole person immediately. Your English should work the same way. Instead of identifying one word after another, begin recognizing complete phrases. For example, "How are you doing?" "Nice to meet you." "Take your time." "I don't think so." "I'll call you later." Do not learn these as separate words. Learn them as complete sound patterns. The more familiar these patterns become, the faster your listening will improve. There is another habit that keeps learners trapped. Every time they miss one sentence, they stop listening and begin thinking about what they missed. While they are trying to recover one sentence, they miss the next sentence as well, then the next. Soon they understand almost nothing. Never do that. If one sentence escapes you, let it go. Keep listening. Very often, the next sentence explains the first one naturally. Strong listeners never stay trapped in the past. Their attention always stays with the present conversation. That is why they continue understanding, while other learners continue falling behind. I also want you to stop fearing unfamiliar sounds. Sometimes native speakers pronounce familiar words differently because of their accent, their speed, or the rhythm of the conversation. That does not mean the English has become impossible. It simply means your ears need more experience. Remember when you first heard English songs? Many of the lyrics sounded impossible to understand. Then after listening several times, the words became clear. The singer did not change. Your brain changed. That is exactly what will happen with native conversations. Every time you expose yourself to natural English, your brain becomes a little faster at recognizing familiar sound patterns. Little by little, sounds that once felt confusing begin feeling normal. Then something remarkable happens. Instead of asking, "What word was that?" your brain begins saying, "I've heard this before." That is the moment listening becomes easier. There is one simple exercise I want you to practice every day. Choose 5 common English expressions. Listen to each one several times. Do not memorize the spelling. Memorize the sound. Close your eyes while listening. Imagine the meaning. Picture the situation. Repeat the phrase aloud. Then listen again. After enough repetition, your brain will stop translating. It will simply recognize. That single habit can completely transform your listening ability. Remember this truth every time you practice. Native speakers are not speaking too fast for you. Your brain is simply learning a new way of recognizing language. The more often you hear natural English, the shorter the journey between sound and meaning becomes. And one day you will notice something extraordinary. A native speaker will finish a sentence, and before you even think about translating, you will already understand exactly what they meant. That is the moment your brain stops treating English as a foreign language and begins treating it as a language it truly understands. Chapter 3. Train your brain to predict what comes next. One of the fastest ways to understand native English is to stop waiting for every sentence to finish before your brain begins working. Strong listeners do not only hear words, they predict meaning. They use the topic, the situation, the speaker's tone, and the beginning of a sentence to prepare for what may come next. This makes listening feel faster because the brain is no longer reacting to every word after it appears. It is already moving with the conversation. Think about what happens in your own language. If someone begins by saying, "I was late for work because," your brain immediately expects a reason. Perhaps there was traffic. Perhaps the alarm did not ring. Perhaps the bus arrived late. You do not know the exact answer yet, but your mind is already prepared for the type of information that is coming. English works the same way. When someone says, "The reason I called you is," your brain should expect an explanation. When someone says, "I wanted to go, but," your brain should expect a problem or change. When someone says, "After I finished work," your brain should expect the next action. When someone says, "If I had more time," your brain should expect a plan, dream, or possibility. These patterns help your mind stay one step ahead. Many learners listen passively. They wait for every word, then try to understand the complete sentence afterward. This creates pressure because the brain must store too much information before it knows what the sentence means. Predictive listening reduces that pressure. The moment you recognize the direction of the sentence, understanding becomes easier. Imagine someone says, "I was planning to travel this weekend, but the weather." Even before the final words arrive, you probably expect something negative. The weather may be bad. There may be heavy rain. The trip may be cancelled. Your prediction gives your brain a framework. When the speaker says, "The weather became terrible, so I stayed home," the sentence feels easier because your mind was already ready for that kind of meaning. Prediction is not guessing without evidence. It is using context intelligently. Suppose two people are standing in a restaurant, looking at a menu. One person says, "I think I'll have." Your brain expects the name of food or a drink. You do not expect them to talk about a job interview or a childhood memory. The situation narrows the possibilities. Now imagine someone is standing at an airport and says, "My flight has been." Your brain expects a word such as delayed, cancelled, or changed. Again, context helps you prepare. This is why listening becomes easier when you understand the topic first. Before watching a video or listening to a conversation, look at the title, the image, or the situation. Ask yourself what people are likely to discuss. If the topic is travel, prepare for words related to airports, hotels, transport, plans, and delays. If the topic is work, prepare for meetings, tasks, deadlines, and problems. Your brain listens faster when it already knows the general area of meaning. You can train prediction with a very simple exercise. Play a short English clip and pause it before the speaker finishes the sentence. Ask yourself, what kind of idea will come next? Do not worry about predicting the exact words. Predict the direction. For example, "I could not sleep last night because..." Pause. What might come next? "There was noise." "I was worried." "The room was too hot." "My neighbor was playing music." Now play the sentence and compare. Even if your prediction is wrong, the exercise is still useful. Your brain stayed active. It followed the structure of the sentence and prepared for meaning. Another useful exercise is predicting from emotion. Tone often tells you what type of message is coming. If someone sounds excited and says, "You will never believe what happened," you expect surprising or positive news. If someone sounds worried and says, "I need to tell you something," you expect a serious conversation. If someone sounds frustrated and says, "This is the third time," you expect a complaint. Listening is not only about vocabulary. It is also about emotion, intention, and direction. Strong listeners pay attention to all of these signals. You should also learn common conversation patterns because they make prediction easier. Native speakers often use familiar structures such as, "First of all, the main problem is," "What happened next was," "The good thing is." On the other hand, "To be honest," "In the end," these phrases tell you what kind of information is coming next. "The main problem is" prepares you for a difficulty. "The good thing is" prepares you for something positive. On the other hand, prepares you for a contrast. "In the end" prepares you for the final result. When you recognize these signals, fast English becomes more organized inside your mind. The conversation stops feeling like a blur and begins feeling like a clear path. Another reason prediction helps is that it reduces the importance of small missed words. If you understand where the sentence is going, one weak or unclear word will not destroy the message. Suppose someone says, "I wanted to buy the jacket, but it was far too." Perhaps you missed the final word at first, but the situation helps you predict it. The speaker probably means expensive, large, small, or uncomfortable. If the next sentence is, "I could not afford it," your brain confirms that the missing word was probably expensive. Context often repairs what your ears missed. This is why you should keep listening instead of stopping after one unclear sound. The answer may appear naturally in the next sentence. Prediction also helps you respond faster. When you understand the direction of the speaker's message, your brain begins preparing a natural reaction. If someone says, "I finally got the job," you are ready to say, "That is wonderful." If someone says, "My flight was cancelled," you are ready to say, "That must have been frustrating." If someone says, "I am thinking about moving to another city," you are ready to ask, "What made you consider that?" You are no longer waiting in confusion. You are participating in the conversation. Do not worry if your predictions are not always correct. Prediction is not about proving that you know the future. It is about keeping your brain engaged with the speaker. Every prediction strengthens your attention and helps you process English as meaning instead of separate sounds. For daily practice, choose a 1-minute video. Before playing it, read the title and predict 3 ideas you may hear. Then listen and notice which ideas appear. Pause before important sentence endings and predict what may come next. Finally, explain the main message in your own words. This simple routine trains your brain to prepare, listen, confirm, and respond. Over time, you will notice a change. Native speech will begin feeling less surprising. Common phrases will guide you. Tone will reveal intention. The topic will narrow the possibilities. Your brain will start understanding before every word becomes completely clear. That is the hidden power of prediction. You are not trying to hear the future. You are teaching your mind to move with English instead of always running behind it. And when your brain begins expecting meaning before the sentence ends, fast native English will no longer feel like something escaping from you. It will begin feeling like a conversation you are finally ready to follow. Chapter 4. Stop depending on subtitles and start trusting your English brain. Let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. How many times have you started watching an English video with the promise that you would not use subtitles, only to turn them on within the first 30 seconds? At first, it feels harmless. You tell yourself, "I just need a little help." Then a little help becomes a habit. Soon, your eyes begin reading before your ears even have a chance to listen. And without realizing it, you have trained your eyes to understand English, while your ears remain exactly where they were months ago. This is one of the biggest reasons many learners stop improving. They think they are practicing listening. In reality, they are practicing reading. There is a huge difference. Imagine going to the gym every day. You watch someone else lift the weights. You study their technique. You memorize every movement. But you never touch the weights yourself. Would your muscles become stronger? Of course not. Listening works exactly the same way. Your ears become stronger only when they do the work, not when your eyes do it for them. Now, let me be clear. Subtitles are not your enemy. They are one of the greatest learning tools available. The problem begins when subtitles become your first choice instead of your last support. Many learners cannot imagine watching English without subtitles because they are afraid of missing something. But that fear is exactly what prevents growth. Your brain grows every time it struggles a little. Think about a child learning to walk. If someone carried that child everywhere because walking was difficult, would the child ever learn balance? No. The child becomes stronger because each small struggle teaches the brain something new. Your listening develops in exactly the same way. The first time you listen without subtitles, you may understand only 30%. That is perfectly normal. The second time, you may understand 40%. The third time, your brain begins recognizing sounds it completely missed before. The speaker did not change. Your brain changed. That is real progress. Here is a method that can completely transform your listening. Choose a short video that lasts no more than 1 minute. The first time, listen without subtitles. Do not panic. Do not pause every few seconds. Simply ask yourself one question. What is the speaker talking about? Forget about perfect understanding. Focus only on the main idea. Then listen a second time. Now your brain already knows the topic. You will naturally catch more words because your attention is calmer. Only after those 2 attempts should you turn on subtitles. Compare what you heard with what was actually said. Notice the words you missed. Notice the expressions you misunderstood. Notice how some words sounded completely different from the way you imagined. Now comes the most important step. Turn the subtitles off again. Listen one more time. Something amazing happens at this stage. The same audio that sounded impossible only a few minutes ago suddenly feels much clearer. Not because the speaker slowed down, because your brain now recognizes the sound patterns. This single habit teaches your ears to become independent. Many learners skip this final step. They leave the subtitles on until the end. Then they wonder why real conversations still feel impossible. The answer is simple. Real life has no subtitles. When someone speaks to you at work, in a cafe, at the airport, or during an interview, there is no text underneath their face. Your ears must be ready. That readiness comes only through practice. Another mistake learners make is choosing videos that are far too difficult. If you understand almost nothing, your brain becomes frustrated instead of trained. Choose content where you can already understand around 60 or 70% without subtitles. That small challenge is enough to make your listening stronger without destroying your confidence. Remember, confidence grows from successful practice, not impossible practice. There is another habit I want you to develop. Instead of watching one difficult video once, watch one short video several times. Each listening has a different purpose. The first time, understand the topic. The second time, notice important words. The third time, check with subtitles. The fourth time, listen without subtitles again. The fifth time, repeat the speaker aloud. Now you are not simply watching English. You are training your brain from every possible direction. This method is far more powerful than watching 10 different videos without paying full attention. Quality always beats quantity. I also want you to celebrate small victories. Perhaps yesterday you understood only half of a short conversation. Today you understand 2 extra sentences. That is progress. Perhaps last month native English sounded like one long stream of noise. Today you recognize common expressions immediately. That is progress. Never ignore these improvements because they are the signs that your brain is changing. One day, something wonderful will happen. You will begin watching an English video without subtitles. Halfway through the conversation, you will suddenly realize that you forgot to turn them on. Not because you forced yourself, because you no longer needed them. That moment will fill you with a confidence that no grammar book can ever give you. You will finally understand that your ears have learned to trust themselves. Remember this every time you practice. Subtitles should guide your learning. They should never become your permanent home. Use them wisely. Learn from them, then let them go. Because the day your brain learns to understand English without depending on written words is the day you stop reading English and finally start listening like a confident speaker. Chapter 5. Stop replaying the sentence in your head and start moving forward with the conversation. There is one silent habit that keeps thousands of English learners trapped, and most of them never even realize they are doing it. A native speaker says one sentence, you miss a few words, And instead of continuing to listen, your brain immediately goes back to replay the sentence you missed. You start asking yourself, what did they say? Was that the word thought or taught? Did they say could or would? While your mind is searching for the answer, the speaker has already moved to the next idea, then another, and then another. By the time your brain finally gives up on the first sentence, the conversation is already far ahead, and now you feel completely lost. The truth is, you did not lose the conversation because the speaker was too fast. You lost it because your attention stopped moving. Your ears remained in the present, but your mind stayed in the past. That gap between where the speaker is and where your brain is creates confusion, frustration, and eventually the belief that native English is impossible to understand. Let me tell you something that may completely change the way you listen. Strong listeners do not understand every sentence perfectly. They simply refuse to let one missed sentence destroy the rest of the conversation. They know that communication keeps moving forward, so they train their attention to move forward as well. Imagine you are walking with a friend through a beautiful forest. For 1 second, you look away because a bird catches your attention. When you look back, your friend has walked a few steps ahead. Would you stand there wondering exactly which trees you missed while your friend continues walking away? Of course not. You would simply walk faster and catch up. Listening works exactly the same way. If one sentence escapes you, let it go. Continue following the conversation. Very often, the next sentence explains the previous one naturally. Speakers repeat important ideas, give examples, tell stories, and provide extra details. Real conversations are full of clues that help you recover without stopping. Suppose someone says, "I was completely exhausted after the meeting because we had been discussing the project for almost 6 hours." Perhaps you missed the word exhausted. Do not stop. Keep listening. The speaker continues, "When I got home, I went straight to bed without eating dinner." Now your brain immediately understands that the missing word probably described being very tired. The conversation repaired itself because you stayed with it. This happens every day in real communication. Context is one of the greatest teachers you will ever have. But context only works if you continue listening. The moment you stop, you lose the opportunity to let the conversation explain itself. Another habit that slows learners down is believing they must solve every listening problem immediately. Every unfamiliar word becomes a mystery they feel responsible for solving before the conversation can continue. That mindset creates enormous pressure because real conversations never pause while you think. Communication is always moving, and your brain must learn to move with it. Instead of asking yourself, "What word did I miss?" begin asking a much more powerful question. What is happening right now? This simple question keeps your attention on the speaker instead of on your confusion. Imagine someone is telling you about their holiday. You miss the name of the city they visited. Does that stop you from understanding that they traveled, explored new places, met interesting people, and enjoyed the experience? Not at all. The name of the city is only one small detail. The real message is much bigger. This is exactly how fluent listeners think. They understand that communication is built from ideas, not from perfect listening. There is another reason why moving forward is so important. Your brain becomes faster every time it continues listening despite uncertainty. At first, this feels uncomfortable because your mind wants complete certainty before it relaxes. But every time you resist the urge to stop and instead stay with the speaker, your brain becomes more confident. Little by little, uncertainty stops feeling dangerous. Instead, it becomes normal. That confidence changes everything. You begin listening with curiosity instead of fear. You stop worrying about every unknown word. You stop expecting perfection from yourself. Most importantly, you stop interrupting your own learning. I want you to practice a simple exercise every day. Choose a short English conversation that lasts 1 or 2 minutes. Listen without pausing. Make one promise to yourself before you begin. No matter how many words I miss, I will not stop the audio. Your only goal is to stay with the conversation until the very end. After it finishes, explain the main story in your own words. Do not worry about details. Do not worry about exact sentences. Simply explain what happened. Then listen again. You will be surprised by how many missing pieces suddenly become clear, because your brain already understands the overall situation. This exercise teaches something far more valuable than vocabulary. It teaches your attention to remain strong. That skill is one of the hidden secrets of advanced listening. Think about professional athletes. They do not become successful because they never make mistakes. They become successful because they recover immediately after making one. They never allow one mistake to destroy the rest of the game. Your listening should work the same way. Missing one sentence is not failure. Stopping your attention because of that sentence is the real problem. Every conversation gives you another opportunity to practice recovery. Every missed word gives you another opportunity to trust context. Every moment of uncertainty gives your brain another chance to become stronger. One day, something remarkable will happen. You will miss a word during a fast conversation, but instead of feeling nervous, you will simply keep listening. A few seconds later, the speaker will explain the idea naturally, and you will understand the message without translating, without replaying the sentence, and without losing confidence. That moment is when your listening begins to feel effortless. Remember this lesson every time you hear fast English. Do not chase the sentence that has already passed. Follow the conversation that is happening now. Because fluent listeners are not the people who never miss a word. They are the people who never stop listening when they do. Chapter 6. Train your brain to understand fast English without replaying the audio. Let me ask you something honestly. How many times have you watched the same English sentence again and again because you believed one more replay would suddenly make everything clear? You listen once, you understand almost nothing, so you replay it, then again, then again. 5 minutes later, you are still listening to the same 15-second sentence, hoping your brain will magically understand it. Does this sound familiar? The problem is not replaying the audio. The problem is replaying it in exactly the same way every single time. If your brain listens with the same habits, it will usually get the same results. Real improvement begins when every replay has a different purpose. Imagine a detective investigating a mystery. The first time they visit the scene, they look at the whole picture. The second time, they notice small details. The third time, they begin connecting the clues. Every visit has a different objective. That is exactly how you should train your listening. The first time you hear a conversation, do not worry about individual words. Simply ask yourself, what is happening? Who is speaking? What are they talking about? Is the conversation happy, serious, exciting, or emotional? Train your brain to understand the direction before worrying about the details. Then listen again. This time, focus only on important words. Do not chase every sound. Listen for the words that carry meaning. Names, places, actions, feelings, important nouns and verbs. You will notice that your brain begins catching far more than it did during the first listening, because now it already understands the general situation. Then listen a third time. Now pay attention to how native speakers connect their words together. Notice where sounds become shorter. Notice where words join together. Notice the rhythm of the sentence instead of only the pronunciation. Suddenly, the conversation that once sounded like one long stream of noise begins separating into meaningful pieces. This is exactly how your brain learns. Not by repeating mindlessly, by repeating with purpose. There is another mistake learners make. They become frustrated when they cannot understand everything after only one listening. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Would you expect perfect balance on your first attempt? Of course not. Your body needs repetition. Your listening does too. Every time you hear the same natural sentence, your brain builds stronger sound recognition. At first, it recognizes only 1 or 2 words, then 5, then the entire sentence. The speaker never changed. Your brain changed. That is the breakthrough you are looking for. I also want you to stop measuring success by asking, "Did I understand 100%?" Instead ask, "Did I understand more than the last time?" That is the only comparison that truly matters. Imagine yesterday you understood only 3 important words. Today you understand 6. Tomorrow you understand 10. That is real progress. Small improvements, repeated every day, become extraordinary results after a few months. Another powerful exercise is listening with your eyes closed. Most learners depend heavily on visual information. They watch the speaker's face, body language, background, and subtitles. All of these things are helpful, but they also reduce the amount of work your ears are doing. Sometimes close your eyes. Allow your ears to become the only source of information. At first it may feel uncomfortable. Then something interesting happens. Your attention becomes sharper. Your brain begins noticing sounds it completely ignored before. You become more aware of stress, rhythm, pauses, and connected speech. Your listening becomes deeper because your ears are finally doing their own work. There is another habit that can completely transform your listening. After hearing a short conversation, stop the audio and explain it aloud using your own English. Do not repeat the exact sentences. Simply explain what happened. Perhaps you understood that 2 friends were making weekend plans. Perhaps someone was apologizing for arriving late. Perhaps a family was discussing dinner. Explain the message using simple English. This exercise forces your brain to process meaning instead of memorizing words. The more often you do this, the faster your listening improves, because understanding and speaking begin supporting each other. Remember something very important. Listening is not a test where every missed word is a failure. Listening is training. Every conversation teaches your brain something new. Every unfamiliar sound becomes more familiar. Every repeated phrase becomes easier to recognize. Every listening session builds another connection inside your mind. One day, you will play a conversation that once felt impossible. You will smile because you understand almost everything. Not because the recording became slower, because your brain became stronger. That is how every fluent listener grows. Not through perfect listening, through patient listening, through intelligent listening, through consistent listening. So from today, stop asking your brain to perform miracles after one replay. Instead, give it a better method. Listen with a purpose. Listen for the message. Listen for important words. Listen for patterns. Listen for rhythm. And every time you return to the same conversation, return with a new goal. Because the more intelligently you practice, the more naturally your brain begins catching fast native English without fear, without subtitles, and without asking the speaker to slow down. That is the moment listening stops feeling like hard work and begins feeling like understanding. Chapter 7. Build the daily habit that makes fast English feel slow. Let me leave you with the most important lesson of this entire audiobook. Everything you have learned so far will change your English only if you turn it into a daily habit. Many learners spend months searching for the perfect method, the perfect teacher, the perfect course, or the perfect video. They believe that one magical lesson will suddenly allow them to understand every native speaker. They continue collecting information, but they rarely give their brain enough repetition to transform that information into a real skill. The truth is much simpler. Your brain does not become faster because you learn more techniques. Your brain becomes faster because it repeats the right habits until understanding becomes automatic. Think about learning to drive a car. During your first lesson, every action requires your full attention. You think about the steering wheel, the mirrors, the pedals, the traffic, and the road all at the same time. It feels overwhelming because your brain has not yet built automatic patterns. But after weeks and months of practice, something amazing happens. You no longer think about every movement. Your hands know where to go. Your feet respond naturally. Your eyes notice important details without forcing yourself to look. Driving becomes smoother because repetition has turned difficult actions into natural habits. Listening to fast English follows exactly the same process. At first, every conversation feels like hard work. Your brain struggles to recognize sounds, understand meaning, remember vocabulary, and keep up with the speaker. You become tired after only a few minutes because everything requires conscious effort. But if you practice correctly every single day, those difficult tasks slowly become automatic. The sounds that once felt impossible become familiar. The phrases that once disappeared become easy to recognize. The conversations that once frightened you become enjoyable. This transformation does not happen in one afternoon. It happens because your brain quietly changes every day, even when you cannot immediately see the progress. That is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. Many learners study English for 4 or 5 hours on one day, then do nothing for the next week. They believe long study sessions are the secret to fluency. They are not. Your brain prefers daily exposure. 20 focused minutes every day will often produce better results than one long study session every weekend, because every day your brain receives another opportunity to strengthen the same listening pathways. Think of your listening ability as a small plant. You cannot pour 100 buckets of water onto it today and expect it to survive for the next month. It needs a little water every single day. Your English grows in exactly the same way. Every short listening session adds another layer of confidence. Every conversation teaches your ears another sound pattern. Every repeated phrase becomes another familiar friend instead of another confusing mystery. I want to give you a simple daily routine that you can follow no matter how busy your schedule is. Spend the first 5 minutes listening to a short English conversation without subtitles. Do not worry about perfect understanding. Simply follow the main message and keep your attention on the speaker. Spend the next 5 minutes listening to the same conversation again. This time, notice important words, connected speech, and the rhythm of the speaker's voice. Allow your brain to compare what it heard during the first listening with what it hears now. Then spend another 5 minutes reading the transcript or subtitles, only to confirm what you missed. Do not judge yourself. Treat every missed word as a new lesson instead of a mistake. Finally, spend 5 more minutes listening once again without subtitles. You will be surprised by how much easier the same conversation now feels because your brain has already built stronger recognition. Finish your practice by speaking for 1 or 2 minutes in your own English. Summarize what you heard. Explain the story. Share the main idea. Do not worry about using perfect grammar. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is to teach your brain that listening and speaking belong together. If you repeat this simple routine every day for the next 30 days, your listening ability will not remain the same. During the first week, you will begin recognizing more familiar words. During the second week, connected speech will no longer sound as confusing as before. During the third week, your brain will start predicting common phrases before the speaker finishes them. By the fourth week, you will notice something that once seemed impossible. Native English will begin feeling slower, not because people changed the way they speak, because your brain changed the way it listens. That is the reward of consistency. I also want you to stop comparing yourself with people who have been learning English for 10 or 15 years. You are only competing with the person you were yesterday. If yesterday you understood 30% and today you understand 40%, you are moving in the right direction. Those small improvements may seem invisible from one day to the next, but after a few months, they become impossible to ignore. Never underestimate the power of one small improvement repeated every single day. One extra sentence understood today becomes one extra conversation tomorrow. One new sound recognized today becomes one less moment of confusion next week. One short listening session today becomes another step towards speaking with confidence in the future. Remember, fluency is not built during moments of motivation. Fluency is built during ordinary days when you decide to practice even when you do not feel like it. That is the difference between people who dream about speaking English and people who actually achieve it. So make yourself one promise before you leave this audiobook. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until you know every word. Do not wait until you stop making mistakes. Start with today's practice. Trust the process. Trust your brain. Trust that every minute you spend listening with purpose is building a stronger version of yourself. Because one day you will sit across from a native English speaker, listen to a fast conversation, smile with confidence, and realize something extraordinary. You are no longer trying to catch every word. You are understanding every idea. And that is the moment when fast native English stops feeling impossible and starts feeling completely natural. Before we finish, I want you to remember one thing. The goal was never to understand every single word. The goal was to understand the person. Too many English learners spend years chasing perfect listening, believing that fluency begins when they stop missing words. But today you discovered something much more powerful. Fluency begins the moment you stop fearing fast English. From today, do not panic when native speakers talk quickly. Do not tell yourself that your English is too weak. Do not reach for subtitles before giving your brain the chance to listen. Instead, trust what you have learned. Follow the message instead of every word. Recognize patterns instead of translating sentences. Keep listening even when you miss something. Allow context to guide your understanding. Practice every day, even if your progress feels small, because every conversation is training your brain. Every sentence you hear is building stronger listening pathways. Every minute you spend with real English is making tomorrow's conversation easier than today's. One day, without even noticing when it happened, you will be watching a movie, listening to a podcast, or speaking with a native English speaker, and suddenly you will realize that you are no longer struggling to catch every word. You are simply understanding. That moment will not happen because English became easier. It will happen because you became stronger. So never stop showing up. Never stop listening. Never stop believing in your ability to improve. Your English is not growing one perfect lesson at a time. It is growing one consistent day at a time. If this audiobook helped you see English in a new way, then subscribe to English Growth Mindset and become part of a community that believes fluency is not a gift for a few people. It is a skill that anyone can build with the right mindset and daily practice. And before you leave, I want you to write one sentence in the comments. From today, I will catch the message before I chase the words. That simple promise could become the turning point in your English journey. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep listening with confidence. Keep learning with patience. Keep growing every single day, and I will see you in the next audiobook.